Their tale is one that grips at the very soul, a narrative of tragedy intertwined with moments of triumph and fame. In the quaint town of Katy, the Temples were pillars of their community, none more so than David, their shining star. His prowess on the football field was legendary, guiding the Katy High School team to an undefeated season in '86. As the backbone of the defense, David's name echoed far beyond the local stadium. He was a beacon of hope, a symbol of pride for all who knew him. But life is a complex tapestry, woven with both light and shadow. David's journey took him beyond the borders of his small-town dreams, propelling him to Stephen F. Austin State University with a full scholarship in hand. The promise of academic and athletic excellence beckoned, and David answered the call with eager anticipation. At SFA, David's talent blazed like a supernova. His presence on the football field was electrifying, earning him the moniker, the Temple of Doom. Yet, amidst the roar of the crowds and the glory of victory, fate had another player waiting in the wings, Belinda Lucas. Belinda, a fellow student, crossed paths with David, and their connection ignited like a flame in the darkness. She was a physical education major, a beacon of light in David's world. Their story seemed destined for greatness, a union of two souls bound by passion and ambition. But fate is a fickle mistress, and tragedy lurks in the shadows. The tale of David and Belinda takes a darker turn, one that shatters the illusion of happily ever after. What twists and turns lie ahead for this star-crossed couple? Only time will reveal the answers, leaving us to ponder the fragile nature of destiny and the power of love in the face of adversity. The bond between David and Belinda was like something out of a fairy tale, bursting forth with a love that seemed to defy all odds. From the moment they met, sparks flew, igniting a flame that burned brightly in their hearts. Belinda, with her golden locks and captivating smile, captured David's attention like no other. He found himself utterly enchanted by her beauty, unable to resist the magnetic pull she exerted on his soul. Their courtship was a whirlwind of romance and passion, each moment spent together a precious gift. David poured his heart into their relationship, showering Belinda with tokens of his affection. From heartfelt notes left on her windshield to surprise bouquets of roses, he spared no effort in showing her just how much she meant to him. And Belinda, with her heart full of love, embraced every gesture with joy and gratitude. After 11 months of blissful courtship, David knew that Belinda was the one he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. With nerves tingling and anticipation coursing through his veins, he took the bold step of seeking her parents' blessing for their union. Their approval was a testament to David's genuine character and the depth of his love for their daughter. Determined to make the proposal a moment to remember, David plotted a romantic gesture that would sweep Belinda off her feet. And so, on the hallowed ground of the football field where he had achieved so much glory, David dropped to one knee and poured out his heart to the woman he adored. As Belinda's eyes brimmed with tears of joy, she whispered a resounding yes to David's heartful plea. In that magical moment, amidst the echo of cheers and the whisper of the wind, two souls became one, bound together by a love that would withstand the test of time. And so, with the promise of forever shining bright in their hearts, David and Belinda embarked on a journey towards their happily ever after, their love a beacon of hope in a world filled with uncertainty and doubt. In 1992, David and Belinda sealed their love in a tender ceremony, surrounded by the warmth of their dearest friends and family. Their union was a beacon of hope, a promise of forever etched in the fabric of time. Settling in the familiar embrace of Katy, Texas, they embarked on a new chapter of their lives, brimming with dreams and aspirations. Belinda, fueled by her passion for education, found her calling as a teacher at Katy High School, the very institution where David had once roamed the halls as a student athlete. Meanwhile, David embraced his role as a coach and educator at AAF Hastings High School, channeling his love for the game into shaping young minds. As the years unfurled like petals in the wind, David and Belinda's longing for a family grew ever stronger, and in the tender embrace of parenthood, their hearts found new depths of joy and fulfillment. The arrival of their son, Ivan, bathed their lives in a radiant glow, each moment a testament to the love that bound them together. To those on the outside looking in, David appeared to be the epitome of a devoted husband, his unwavering support for Belinda evident in every facet of their shared existence. Yet, behind closed doors, whispers of discord lingered like shadows in the night. Some whom knew the couple intimately bore witness to a different truth, a reality shrouded in pain and uncertainty. They spoke of David's controlling demeanor, his sharp words cutting through the veneer of marital bliss, his derogatory remarks about Belinda's appearance, and her role as a mother cast a shadow over their once idyllic union. According to Belinda's twin, who had glimpsed the cracks in their facade during holiday gatherings, David's behavior was a far cry from the love and respect she deserved. In the quiet moments of reflection, she wondered how the fairy tale she had once believed in had morphed into a nightmare of manipulation and despair. As the whispers of discontent grew louder, the fragile facade of David and Belinda's marriage threatened to crumble, leaving behind a trail of shattered dreams and unanswered prayers. In the midst of it all, Ivan, their innocent beacon of hope, stood as a silent witness to the tumultuous storm brewing within the walls of his childhood home. The once vibrant fabric of David and Belinda's marriage began to unravel, revealing the darker truth hidden beneath the surface. The laughter that once echoed through their home now carried the sting of frequent jokes, each barb aimed at Belinda's expense. David's words, once whispered with love, now dripped with venom as he hurled insults at his wife, tearing down her self-esteem with each cruel remark. Reports surfaced of David's relentless attacks on Belinda's appearance, his mockery of her body serving as a constant reminder of her perceived flaws. His disdain extended beyond Belinda herself, as he launched verbal assaults on her family, casting them aside with derogatory slurs that cut to the bone. The love that once bound them together now felt like chains, suffocating Belinda's spirit as David tightened his grip on her life. He actively sabotaged her relationships, keeping her and even away from her own family, isolating her in a world of his making. The weight of Belinda's pregnancy lingered like a dark cloud over their marriage, David's frustration bubbling to the surface as he berated her for failing to meet his expectations. His disappointment in her perceived physical decline fueled his resentment, poisoning the air between them with bitterness and regret. As David distanced himself further from Belinda, his eyes wandered to the past, seeking solace in the arms of an old flame. The betrayal cut deep, leaving Belinda reeling in a whirlwind of emotions as she struggled to comprehend the shattered remnants of their once great love. With each passing day, David's absence grew more pronounced, his excuses ringing hollow as he slipped further into the embrace of infidelity. His lies, like daggers to Belinda's heart, pierced the fragile illusion of trust that had sustained them for so long. In the silent depths of their home, Belinda stood alone, her heart heavy with the weight of unspoken pain. The echoes of David's betrayal reverberated through the empty rooms, a haunting reminder of the love that was lost amidst the wreckage of broken promises and shattered dreams. The cracks in David and Belinda's marriage deepened into chasms, each passing day a painful reminder of the distance that had grown between them. Belinda, burdened by a sense of unease, found herself grappling with suspicions that gnawed at her soul like hungry wolves. As she played with her son, Ivan, the weight of uncertainty pressed down upon her, a heavy shroud suffocating the air around her. Seeking solace in the company of her friends, Belinda confided her fears, tentative whispers of doubt mingling with the fragile threads of hope. Yet, even as she voiced her concerns, a part of her clung to the belief that there must be a rational explanation for David's increasingly frequent absences. Her heart sank as she delved into their credit card statements, each charge from exotic nightclubs, casting a shadow of doubt over their once solid foundation. Confronting David, she braced herself for his feeble excuses, reluctantly accepting his hollow words as she watched their bond unravel before her eyes. The rift between them widened with each passing day, their once vibrant love drowning in a sea of silence and resentment. Desperate to salvage what remained of their shattered relationship, Belinda mustered the courage to confront David, her heart pounding with fear and longing. In the quiet stillness of the night, as the weight of their unspoken words hung heavy in the air, David's admission pierced the darkness like a ray of light, igniting a spark of hope within Belinda's weary heart. But as the days turned into weeks, the fragile peace they had forged crumbled once more, their happiness as fleeting as a candle's flame in the wind. Yet amid the chaos and uncertainty, a glimmer of joy pierced the darkness, as Belinda discovered the precious gift growing within her womb, a symbol of hope and renewal, a testament to their enduring love. January 11th, 1999, dawned like any other day, yet it held within its grasp the promise of a new beginning. Belinda, heavy with the weight of anticipation, went about her day with a sense of quiet excitement, her heart filled with dreams of the future. But fate, cruel and capricious, had other plans in store. As the day wore on and evening descended, tragedy struck with a ferocity that left Belinda reeling in its wake. The events that unfolded would forever alter the course of their lives, leaving them shattered and broken in its aftermath. The tranquility of that fateful evening shattered like glass, leaving David gripped by a chilling sense of dread as he approached his home. The sight of the back door ajar, shards of broken glass scattered across the threshold, sent shockwaves of fear coursing through his veins. With Even clutched tightly in his arms, David's heart raced as he instinctively knew that something was terribly wrong. Fear propelled him forward, his frantic footsteps echoing in the stillness of the night as he sought refuge in the comforting embrace of a neighbor's home. Urgency permeated every fiber of his being as he pleaded for help, his voice trembling with a mixture of panic and desperation. As sirens wailed in the distance, David's mind raced with 1,000 terrifying possibilities. Dread weighed heavy on his heart as he returned to the scene of the unfolding tragedy, his footsteps heavy with foreboding. The sight that greeted him in the dim light of the master bedroom closet shattered his world into a million jagged pieces. Belinda, his beloved wife, lay lifeless amidst a pool of crimson, her once vibrant spirit extinguished by a senseless act of violence. With trembling hands, David reached for his phone, fingers fumbling as he dialed the number that would summon help. The seconds stretched into eternity as he awaited the arrival of the authorities, his mind a whirlwind of confusion and grief. As the officers descended upon the scene, their arrival heralded a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness that threatened to consume him. But even in the midst of chaos, one final obstacle stood in their path: the fierce loyalty of Shaka, their loyal companion, who stood guard with unwavering devotion. With every fiber of his being, David pleaded for the officers' understanding, his voice raw with anguish as he navigated the tumultuous waves of grief and disbelief. And as the truth began to unravel, he found himself cast into a storm of suspicion and uncertainty, his every word scrutinized with unyielding scrutiny. In the harsh glare of interrogation, David's resolve wavered, his soul laid bare as he grappled with the weight of his wife's tragic demise. Yet, amid the chaos and confusion, one truth remained steadfast: the bond of love that had once bound them together would endure, transcending even the darkest of days. The aftermath of Belinda's tragic death left a lingering shadow of sorrow and disbelief, a haunting reminder of the fragility of life and the depths of human cruelty. As investigators meticulously sifted through the shattered remnants of their once happy home, the chilling truth began to emerge from the wreckage. The gruesome details of Belinda's final moments painted a harrowing picture of senseless violence, her life cut short by the merciless blast of a shotgun. The loss of her unborn daughter only added to the magnitude of the tragedy, a heartbreaking reminder of the innocence snuffed out before it had the chance to blossom. Amidst the chaos of investigation, suspicions swirled like a storm, each revelation adding another layer of complexity to an already tangled web of deceit and betrayal. The shattered glass, the overturned drawers, the scattered belongings, each clue a piece of the puzzle in a mystery that defied comprehension. Initial theories of a botched robbery gave way to a more sinister reality as detectives delved deeper into the labyrinth of motives and suspects. David, once a grieving husband, found himself cast under the harsh glare of suspicion, his every move scrutinized with unrelenting scrutiny. Yet, as the focus shifted to other potential culprits, one name emerged from the shadows: Riley Sanders, their teenage neighbor whose troubled past and access to a deadly weapon painted a damning portrait of guilt. The revelation of Riley's possible involvement sent shockwaves through the community, shattering the illusion of safety and trust that had once bound them together. His failed polygraph test only served to deepen the sense of unease, leaving lingering doubts about his true innocence. As the investigation pressed forward, the weight of uncertainty hung heavy in the air, each passing day a painful reminder of the gaping void left in Belinda's absence. And amidst the chaos and despair, one truth remained constant: the quest for justice, a beacon of hope in the darkness, guiding those left behind on their journey towards closure and healing. The twists and turns of Belinda's tragic saga left a trail of shattered hearts and unanswered questions, each revelation adding another layer of pain to an already unbearable truth. As suspicions swirled and accusations flew, the specter of justice remained elusive, a distant beacon of hope in a sea of uncertainty. Riley Sanders, once cast as a potential suspect, faded into the background as the spotlight shifted to David, Belinda's own husband. Despite David's vehement denials, the shadow of suspicion hung heavy over him, casting a pall over his once charmed existence. The revelation of David's affair with Heather Scott, a colleague at the high school where he worked, pierced the veil of betrayal, leaving Belinda's loved ones reeling in disbelief. Their hearts shattered anew as they grappled with the betrayal of a husband who had sworn to love and cherish Belinda until death parted them. Yet, as the years passed and the investigation languished in the depths of despair, hope flickered like a dying ember, threatening to be extinguished by the weight of grief and loss. Belinda's family refused to let her memory fade into obscurity, fighting tirelessly to keep her name alive in the public consciousness. Their efforts seemed futile in the face of overwhelming odds. The silence of tip lines and the absence of leads a constant reminder of the uphill battle they faced. But just when it seemed that all hope was lost, a glimmer of light pierced the darkness, heralding a turning point in their quest for justice. The conviction of Scott Peterson for the murder of his pregnant wife, Lacey, breathed new life into Belinda's case, igniting a spark of hope in the hearts of those who had long fought for answers. The similarities between Lacey's murder and Belinda's death gave prosecutors in Katy, Texas, a renewed sense of purpose as they sought to unravel the tangled web of lies and deceit that had shrouded Belinda's tragic fate. With Scott's conviction as a precedent, the prosecutors embarked on a renewed investigation, determined to uncover the truth behind Belinda's murder. Armed with a theory that painted David as the cold-blooded killer, they dared to hope that justice would finally be served for the woman whose life had been stolen in the prime of her existence. As the wheels of justice turned once more, Belinda's loved ones clung to the fragile hope that her memory would finally be vindicated, that her voice would be heard from beyond the grave. And though the road ahead was fraught with uncertainty, they vowed to stand by her side until the bitter end, refusing to rest until the truth was laid bare for all to see. The culmination of years of anguish and uncertainty reached its climax as David Temple, the man accused of robbing Belinda of her life, stood trial for her murder. The courtroom buzzed with tension and anticipation, the air thick with the weight of unresolved questions and unspoken truths. As the prosecution laid bare their case, painting a damning portrait of David as the architect of Belinda's tragic demise, the echoes of her untimely death reverberated through the halls of justice. With each revelation, the gaping wound left by her loss was torn open anew, a raw reminder of the pain that lingered in the hearts of those who had loved her. The defense's desperate attempts to shift the blame onto Riley Sanders, their teenage neighbor, fell flat in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Yet, despite the mounting proof of David's guilt, The road to justice was fraught with obstacles and delays, leaving Belinda's loved ones to languish in a state of limbo. Years passed, each one marked by the agonizing wait for closure, as the wheels of justice turned at a glacial pace. And when David's conviction was finally overturned, the blow struck like a hammer, shattering the fragile hope that had sustained them through the darkest of days. But even as the specter of uncertainty loomed large, they refused to be silenced, their voices rising in a chorus of defiance and determination. And when the second trial commenced, their resolve remained unshaken, fueled by a burning desire to see justice served for the woman whose life had been stolen so cruelly. In the end, as the jury delivered their verdict, the weight of years of anguish and frustration lifted like a heavy burden, replaced by a sense of closure and vindication. Though the road had been long and arduous, justice had prevailed, offering a glimmer of solace to those who had fought tirelessly in Belinda's memory. And as David faced the consequences of his actions, sentenced to spend the rest of his days behind bars, a sense of peace settled over those who had loved Belinda, their hearts finally free from the chains of uncertainty and doubt. Though her presence would forever be missed, her memory would live on in the hearts of all who had known and loved her. Freya Holm stepped out of the cafe where she worked weekends, and from that moment, her life took a dark turn. Disturbing clues began to surface, hinting at something truly awful. This case quickly became Sweden's top news story, mobilizing over 1,000 people for the largest search operation in the country's history. As investigators pieced together the puzzle, they uncovered a grim truth that left everyone stunned. How could such a tragedy have happened? Let's rewind to Freya's background. Freya Holm was born on February 7, 1999, in the serene Swedish town of Hu. It was a place of quietude and peace, where she lived with her parents and older sister. Freya stood out for her kindness, positivity, and determination. Even before finishing school, she had her sights set on Australia and a career in architecture. Freya's adventurous spirit led her to explore other countries alongside her parents. At 16, Freya landed her first serious job at a cafe, located a 40-minute drive from her home. Initially, her parents drove her there, but soon her father gifted her a scooter. With a license for this mode of transport, Freya relished the independence it offered. However, during those initial weeks, her father accompanied her in his car. Freya had minimal experience driving on the roads. Her work at the cafe was limited to weekends, and her father dutifully accompanied her every morning and evening. However, everything changed on June 7th, when he finally allowed her to drive to work alone. Around lunchtime, Freya's parents decided to visit her at the bustling cafe. Amid the crowd, Freya was engrossed in her duties, taking a brief break for lunch and sharing a snack with her parents. At 6:23 p.m., Freya sent her father a text, informing him that she was leaving work. But just 3 minutes later, he received an unexpected call from her. When he answered, no one spoke on the other end. Faint voices murmured in the background, leading him to believe that Freya had accidentally dialed his number while conversing with her colleagues. He even heard the distinct sound of a car door slamming shut. Calling out her name repeatedly, he received no response before finally ending the call. Growing increasingly worried, an hour passed without any sign of Freya. She should have arrived home by now. Concerned for her safety, her father considered the possibility of an accident. It was her first time riding the scooter alone, and he feared the worst. Despite calling her multiple times, Freya's phone remained off. Desperate, her father hit the road, hoping to intercept her along the way.
Knowing she would take the shortest route, he drove slowly, scanning the road for any trace of his daughter. But Freya was nowhere to be found. Eventually, he arrived back at the cafe, still without any sign of her. The man's heart raced as he noticed Freya's scooter parked in front of the building. Panic surged through him. He had been unable to find his daughter throughout the entire journey. But there it was, the scooter, a beacon of hope. Perhaps she was merely delayed at work. However, as he stepped into the cafe, his relief turned to dread. The place was empty, devoid of any sign of Freya. And then he saw it. Freya's scooter keys, left in the ignition, a helmet hanging from its handle. His mind raced. Why would she abandon her scooter like this? She would never leave the keys in the ignition, not like this. Desperation drove him to call Freya's mother. Maybe she knew something. But the cafe owner, when contacted, claimed ignorance. She had spoken to her employees around 6 p.m., and they were closing up. No one had seen Freya. The cafe owner sprang into action. She hopped into her car, calling 4 friends who lived nearby. Together, they scoured the area, searching every nook and cranny. Maybe Freya had taken a bus instead of the scooter. Her mother and older sister checked the bus schedule, but Freya wasn't on any bus. As darkness settled, panic intensified. The police were called. Extensive searches began. Freya's scooter, left in the parking lot with the keys, raised chilling possibilities. Abduction? Such cases were rare in Sweden, but hope was dwindling. They needed answers, and they needed them fast. In the remote provincial area where Freya's town was nestled, the police sprang into action. Several groups, accompanied by search dogs, fanned out across the terrain. Simultaneously, officers knocked on doors of every house near the cafe, hoping for any leads. Word spread like wildfire. Freya's classmates and friends took to social media, sharing information about her disappearance, desperate to attract attention and perhaps uncover witnesses. The night wore on, but the search yielded no results. Then, on Monday morning, the police department officially announced Freya's disappearance, urging anyone with useful information to step forward. Around the same time, a man working at a barn adjacent to the cafe made a chilling discovery: a motorcycle glove lying on the floor. Detectives had previously inspected the barn on the evening of Freya's disappearance, but the glove had escaped their notice. When shown to Freya's parents, they confirmed it belonged to their daughter, further fueling the abduction theory. Additional resources were deployed, and news of Freya's vanishing spread nationwide. Hundreds of volunteers joined the search. On Tuesday, more alarming clues emerged. Volunteers scoured the area along a dirt road, a few hundred yards from the cafe. There, they found a phone case, a receipt, a ticket, and a broken smartphone screen, all unmistakably Freya's. The investigation honed in on that very spot. More fragments of the shattered phone, Freya's ID, and additional receipts were scattered along the same dirt road. The abduction of Freya sent shockwaves through the community. The police mobilized all available resources, and as each day passed, more people joined the search. Freya's case dominated headlines in Sweden, capturing the nation's attention. Hundreds of volunteers from across the country rallied to participate in the largest search operation in modern Swedish history. Among those aiding the search was a local volunteer organization specializing in finding missing persons. Their collective efforts were relentless, fueled by hope and determination. The police hotline buzzed with tips and leads, each call a potential breakthrough. One jogger's encounter stood out. She recounted an unsettling incident from the day before Freya vanished. A man, speaking English, had stopped her on the road, seeking directions to an unfamiliar city. When he insisted she get into his car to guide him using his navigator, her instincts kicked in. She declined, continuing her run. She later realized she had seen this man among the workers repairing the barn across from the cafe. Freya's colleagues also had an observation. On the day of her disappearance, they noticed two men standing across the road from the cafe, their gaze fixed on the establishment. At the time, it seemed insignificant, but in hindsight, it became a crucial detail. Then, on Wednesday morning, Freya's father and friends ventured to the dirt road where her belongings had been found. As they walked farther, they made alarming discoveries. Freya's driver's license and her house keys. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but the mystery deepened. Where was Freya? What had happened to her? The search intensified, fueled by desperation and the unwavering hope of finding her alive. The unfolding events painted a chilling picture. Freya, her belongings strewn along the road, taken away from the cafe. The abductor discarded her things, keys, helmet, and scooter, like breadcrumbs leading to an ominous destination. The police and volunteers focused their efforts on this path, desperate for any sign of her. But that evening, a twist occurred. A friend of Freya's father, passing by the cafe, noticed the police tape removed from the barn where Freya's glove had been found. Curiosity piqued. He stepped inside, flashlight in hand. The dim light revealed something unexpected. A pair of earrings glinting on the floor. Identical earrings lay nearby. He reported this to the police, who showed them to Freya's parents. Their confirmation sealed the connection. The jewelry belonged to their missing daughter. The barn was sealed once more, but this time, thoroughness prevailed. Forensic experts and search dogs combed every inch. And then, behind a wall, an unusual clue emerged: human feces. At first glance, it seemed unrelated, but the experts proposed an intriguing theory. When criminals commit heinous acts, adrenaline floods their bodies. Sometimes, this intense surge leads to an uncontrollable need to relieve themselves. Even killers in their darkest moments may involuntarily betray their presence. The search intensified, fueled by desperation and determination. Freya's fate hung in the balance, and the clock ticked relentlessly. The truth lay hidden within these cryptic clues, waiting to be unraveled. As the investigation unfolded, the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together. Freya's glove and earrings discovered in the barn hinted at a grim possibility. The perpetrator might have dragged her into that very building. Detectives refused to rule out the notion that adrenaline-fueled urgency could lead to an involuntary act, relieving themselves. The feces found were sent for DNA analysis, hoping to unravel the truth. On Friday, the search area expanded. Volunteers reached a farm about 2 miles from the cafe, a sprawling complex with several large buildings. The search team meticulously inspected each one. But then, 2 men arrived, speaking only English. One claimed the police had already been there, but the team leader remained skeptical. He pressed on, determined to uncover any secrets hidden within the farm's walls. As the men watched, the search continued. And then, behind the cowshed, a pile of branches concealed a chilling cache: a motorcycle helmet, jacket, and headphones, all belonging to Freya. The police descended on the scene, confirming the connection. Forensic experts combed every inch, and their attention turned to an unusual find: human feces. It seemed unrelated, but they knew better. When criminals commit heinous acts, adrenaline surges, sometimes leading to uncontrollable urges. Detectives also recalled a jogger's encounter with a suspicious English-speaking man. And they had an inkling. From the outset, they had visited every house near the cafe. In one, 2 Lithuanian brothers and the wife of one lived, none speaking Swedish, all communicating in English. The pieces were falling into place, but Freya's fate remained shrouded in darkness. The search persisted, fueled by determination and the desperate hope of finding her alive. Freya Holm's disappearance and the subsequent investigation gripped Sweden, leaving an indelible mark on the nation's collective memory. On June 7, 2015, Freya Helena Holm, a 16-year-old girl from Skövde, was working at a cafe in Blomberg, near Kalby, in Västergötland, Sweden. She sent a text message to her father at 6:23 p.m., saying she was on her way home on her moped. However, when Freya didn't arrive, her father went to her workplace, where he found her moped with the keys still in the ignition. Concerned, he and the cafe owner searched the cafe in the nearby area, but Freya was nowhere to be found. At 9:47 p.m., they reported her missing to the police. The police initiated searches in the vicinity, including a barn with several rooms, but initially found no trace of Freya. On June 9th, the search team discovered Freya's cell phone case, receipts, tickets, and other personal items that confirmed they belonged to her. The search area was expanded, and Missing People, a volunteer organization, joined the efforts. Earrings and her license card for the moped were found, and on June 12th, Missing People searched the Martorp estate, a few kilometers from the cafe. There, they found Freya's jacket and helmet. Later that same night, Freya's body was discovered in a nearby workshed. The forensic investigation revealed that Freya had been murdered by hanging or strangulation. DNA evidence linked Lithuanian citizen Nacogdoches Bilevičius to the crime scene. His DNA was found on pieces of rope and 10 pieces of Freya's clothing, both inside and outside the locker where her body was hidden. Bilevičius had no alibi for the day of the murder, and the motive appeared to be of a sexual nature. Despite the absence of signs of sexual assault, Freya's partially unclothed body was found with a rope around her neck and tape over her head. The news of Freya's abduction and subsequent discovery of her body dominated headlines in Sweden. The tragic case left a lasting impact on the country, highlighting the importance of justice and safety for young individuals. Freya's lifeless body lay in the car as it sped toward the farm. Along the way, the perpetrator flung her belongings out of the window, scattering them across the roadside. At the farm, hidden within the trailer locker, Freya's remains were concealed beneath a pile of old clothes. The abduction had been swift, less than an hour from the moment Freya was taken. Despite compelling evidence, the perpetrator stubbornly maintained his innocence. His wife and younger brother, lacking any incriminating evidence, were eventually released. They wasted no time, swiftly departing Sweden to return to their homeland in Lithuania. As the trial loomed, the intensity grew. The accused, Nair, claimed he had toiled in that very barn for an extended period, suggesting his DNA might naturally be present there due to his work. Furthermore, he presented an alibi supported by both his wife and brother. However, doubts lingered about the credibility of these sources in court. On the other hand, the victim's clothing bore traces of Nas's DNA. This could only be explained by direct contact with Freya on the day of the murder. The police discovered a witness who had seen Ner's car near the cafe shortly before and after Freya's abduction. The car had repeatedly traversed the road between the cafe and the farm during the same time frame when Ner was supposedly at home, asleep, according to his brother and wife. Months passed after Freya's body was found, yet experts continued their meticulous examination of all available evidence. Cutting-edge equipment revealed Nas's DNA on nearly every article of Freya's clothing, including the inside of her underwear. As the entire country followed the case, investigators persisted in their search for additional clues that could strengthen the legal case against Ner. They even traveled to Lithuania to re-interview his wife and brother, but the woman remained steadfast in her insistence that Ner was innocent and had not left their home. During the investigation, the spotlight shifted to Nas's younger brother. Detectives pressed him for information, revealing the mounting evidence against his sibling. The brother, cornered, finally divulged the truth. He asserted that Nas had not been at home that fateful evening. Instead, Nas returned around 7:30 p.m., covered in dirt. In a panic, he hastily tossed his soiled clothes into the washing machine. As the police questioned all the residents, Nas whispered to his brother, urging him to vouch for his presence at home during that critical time. Nas later explained that he feared being wrongfully framed due to his immigrant status and lack of an alibi during the abduction window. Initially, the younger brother staunchly believed in Nas's innocence. However, faced with the weight of the evidence, he realized otherwise. Freya's funeral occurred just a month after her tragic murder. The church, with a capacity for 130 people, overflowed with mourners. To accommodate the crowd, organizers set up benches and large screens outside, allowing everyone to participate in the ceremony. The trial commenced 4 months later, once again gripping the entire nation. The pressure on everyone involved was immense. No room for error existed. Nas's lawyer clung to the argument that his client's DNA might have innocently ended up on the victim's clothing due to his work in the barn. However, the prosecution dismantled this theory, especially concerning Freya's underwear. The only plausible explanation for Nas's DNA being there was direct contact with the victim. The lawyer struggled to provide any other substantial evidence supporting Nas's innocence. Desperate, he even floated the theory that the real murderer might be Nas's younger brother. During the trial, Nas's younger brother unexpectedly provided crucial information. He confessed to manipulating multiple samples of Nas's DNA and placing them on the victim's body and at the crime scene. The lawyer struggled to explain how such DNA manipulations were possible. Despite the defense's efforts, the trial lasted a month, and Nas was ultimately found guilty of murder. His sentence: life imprisonment in a high-security prison. In Sweden, even prison facilities lean toward comfort, resembling decent 3-star hotels. Nas's lawyer attempted an appeal, but it was swiftly rejected in early 2017. Nas himself applied for deportation, seeking transfer to a Lithuanian prison. The reasons behind this decision remained undisclosed. Lithuanian prisons, however, are notably harsher than their Swedish counterparts. Still, the court approved Nas's request, even though providing comfortable detention conditions cost Swedish taxpayers significantly. In the same year, Nas's motives became apparent. he appealed to a Lithuanian court, successfully reducing his life sentence to 15 years. Yet, this fleeting joy was short-lived. The court later overturned its decision, condemning Nas to spend his entire life in prison, albeit without the comfort of his previous Swedish cell. In August 2022, Nas faced another grim reality after being transferred to a Lithuanian prison. During a routine inmate relocation, he was viciously attacked with a shank, sustaining severe injuries that proved fatal on the way to the hospital. As for Nas's wife, her involvement remains an open question. While there is practically no chance of her direct participation in the abduction or murder, experts would have detected her DNA on Frezia's clothing or belongings if she were implicated.
Today we're going to explore a tragic case set in the vast expanse of the Aegean Sea, where the horizon seems endless and the water stretches up to meet the sky. On this particular journey, the Royal Caribbean cruise ship was sailing with newlyweds George Smith and Jennifer, who stood on the deck, feeling the wind in their hair and marveling at the majestic nature around them. The Aegean Sea lay before them, promising a future full of dreams and plans. What began as their wedding journey turned into a mystery that would captivate many. On July 5, 2005, around 8 a.m., on Deck 7 of the Royal Caribbean cruise ship, 16-year-old Emily Rausch from Chicago was getting ready for a sunny day. Looking out of her cabin window, Emily noticed something alarming. Blood smeared across the canopy that shielded a nearby lifeboat, with a stain near the edge as if someone had fallen overboard. Alarmed, Emily reported this to the ship's staff. Other passengers also noticed these frightening signs, sparking a lively and anxious discussion about what might have happened. This incident quickly made headlines in international publications. Just days after a joyful young couple began their honeymoon cruise, their happiness was shattered by a horrific, unexplained event. The mystery unfolded in cabin number 962, with theories ranging from an accident to robbery or even premeditated murder. The investigation turned into a complex puzzle for the authorities, with evidence pointing to multiple suspects, each hiding their own secrets. It seemed that many on board knew more than they were willing to reveal. What truly happened on that dark night aboard the ship remains a question for detectives, journalists, and everyone following this enigmatic case. George Smith was known for his cheerful, inquisitive, and bright personality. Born in Greenwich, Connecticut, he had a happy childhood filled with family joy and support. His father, George Smith Sr., owned and ran a liquor store, a family business that George Jr. was passionate about. After completing his business education at Babson College in Massachusetts in 2000, George worked in Boston as a computer data mining analyst. However, his heart was always with the family business, and he eventually returned home to help run the store, preparing to take it over and allow his parents to retire. As we delve deeper into this case, we'll explore the events that led to the tragic turn of their honeymoon and the intricate web of secrets and lies aboard the Royal Caribbean. In 2002, during a reunion with friends, George Smith met Jennifer, who would become his life partner. Jennifer, also from Connecticut, had just secured a job as an elementary school teacher. She was bright, beautiful, and ambitious, much like George. The two quickly fell in love, and George's parents were delighted with his choice. 3 years later, in 2005, when George was 26, the couple decided to marry and start a new chapter in their lives. They celebrated their wedding at the Castle Hill Inn in the picturesque town of Newport, Rhode Island. The ceremony took place oceanfront, providing a perfect backdrop for such an important event. Immediately after the ceremony, the newlyweds embarked on a wedding trip, choosing a cruise on a luxury liner, one of the majestic ships of the Royal Caribbean. The 12-day tour involved sailing the beautiful waters of the Aegean Sea. Their journey began in Barcelona on June 29th, with stops along France's Côte d'Azur and the coast of Italy. Aboard the liner, George and Jennifer quickly befriended another couple
and a young man named Josh Askin from California. Josh, a 20-year-old with a keen sense of humor, soon became close friends with George, and the group enjoyed spending time together. On July 1st, while the liner was moored off the Italian coast, they decided to go ashore together and have fun. They spent July 4th exploring the island, walking through the narrow streets of its old town, swimming in the pristine Aegean Sea, and savoring local cuisine in cozy taverns. Happy and cheerful, they enjoyed each other's company and the beautiful atmosphere of Mykonos, leaving unforgettable memories in their hearts. They planned to continue the evening together on the deck of the liner. After a romantic dinner, George and Jennifer met up with their friends again. The merry company decided to have a good laugh and remember this exotic corner of the world. The evening was full of laughter and excitement. After enjoying appetizers and drinks, the newlyweds, along with Josh, went to the casino on board. George and Josh enjoyed sitting at the craps table, while Jennifer played poker. By the end of the evening, the newlyweds had lost a significant amount of money, but joked about it, as it was their honeymoon. After the casino closed, the friends decided to continue their night out. The last video of George was recorded around 2:30 a.m. on one of the liner's security cameras, showing him leaving the casino. However, this did not mean George would return to his cabin. In the early morning hours of July 5, 2005, a mysterious plot began to unfold on the Greek island of Mykonos. George Smith, 26, a newlywed on an Aegean cruise with his wife Jennifer, disappeared. George was reportedly enjoying the liner's atmosphere of fun and luxury. Everything seemed harmless that night, but the sequel turned out to be much darker. The captain of the ship examined the cabin where strange footprints had been found, as well as the place on deck. No one was in the cabin, and the footprints and evidence indicated something serious had happened. The news of the possible disappearance quickly spread among the passengers, causing alarm. Deck 7 was cordoned off, and no one was allowed in or out of their cabins. The ship's crew thoroughly checked every possible area on the liner, hoping to find George and Jennifer. After discovering blood, the newlyweds were presumed to have mysteriously disappeared. The senior officer took charge and headed to their stateroom to investigate. From the available traces, it was hypothesized that George might have fallen overboard. Meanwhile, the search for the young couple continued on the other side of the ship. By 10 a.m., Jennifer was found in the ship's spa, having a pre-booked massage session. She expressed deep surprise and concern, claiming she was unaware of her husband's whereabouts and had not seen him since the previous night. Jennifer explained that when she woke up, George wasn't there, but she wasn't initially worried as he often spent time with friends. She went to her spa treatment without being bothered by his absence. At noon, Turkish authorities arrived on board to begin an investigation. The ship's captain reassured the passengers and announced that cooperation with local authorities was necessary to clarify the circumstances, expressing hope for a quick resolution. The police began their questioning with Jennifer, who, in her agitated state and apparent lack of information about her husband, became the main suspect. She said she hadn't seen George since the previous night, and that men in white uniforms from the Royal Caribbean had informed her that her husband might have fallen overboard. They had noticed traces of blood on the boat's awning, confirming something terrible had happened to George. Investigators scrutinized cabin 962, which was in disarray, possibly from a hurried search or struggle. They found small drops of blood on the carpet and towel in the bathroom, and fingerprints on the balcony railing. Turkish investigators also found 2 small bloodstains on the bedding, each about 2 centimeters long, adding to the mystery of George Smith's disappearance. These samples were identified as George's blood. All evidence indicated that George had been traumatized inside the cabin before his mysterious disappearance. The investigators' attention was particularly drawn to a chair on the balcony, which had been moved to allow someone to sit next to the railing. They found marks on the railing suggesting someone had sat on it. This raised suspicions among many, including the ship's captain, that George might have fallen from the balcony. However, the high railing and the presence of blood both on the boat's awning and inside the cabin also suggested a possible murder. Investigators began reconstructing the sequence of events from that night, trying to determine who George had been spending time with and what might have led to this tragedy. The investigation was just beginning, but it was already clear that they were facing a complex and dark story, full of mysteries and unexpected twists and turns. When the Turkish authorities boarded the ship to investigate George Smith's disappearance, they decided to start by questioning the group of young men with whom the newlyweds had spent time the previous night. The situation remained mysterious, and every detail could be crucial in solving the case. The captain of the ship examined the cabin where strange footprints had been found, as well as the place on deck. No one was in the cabin, and the footprints and evidence indicated something serious had happened. The news of the possible disappearance quickly spread among the passengers, causing alarm. Deck 7 was cordoned off, and no one was allowed in or out of their cabins. The ship's crew thoroughly checked every possible area on the liner, hoping to find George and Jennifer. After discovering blood, the newlyweds were presumed to have mysteriously disappeared. The senior officer took charge and headed to their stateroom to investigate. From the available traces, it was hypothesized that George might have fallen overboard. Meanwhile, the search for the young couple continued on the other side of the ship. By 10 a.m., Jennifer was found in the ship's spa, having a pre-booked massage session. She expressed deep surprise and concern, claiming she was unaware of her husband's whereabouts and had not seen him since the previous night. Jennifer explained that when she woke up, George wasn't there, but she wasn't initially worried, as he often spent time with friends. She went to her spa treatment without being bothered by his absence. At noon, Turkish authorities arrived on board to begin an investigation. The ship's captain reassured the passengers and announced that cooperation with local authorities was necessary to clarify the circumstances, expressing hope for a quick resolution. The police began their questioning with Jennifer, who, in her agitated state and apparent lack of information about her husband, became the main suspect. She said she hadn't seen George since the previous night, and that men in white uniforms from the Royal Caribbean had informed her that her husband might have fallen overboard. They had noticed traces of blood on the boat's awning, confirming something terrible had happened to George. Investigators scrutinized cabin 962, which was in disarray, possibly from a hurried search or struggle. They found small drops of blood on the carpet and towel in the bathroom and fingerprints on the balcony railing. Turkish investigators also found 2 small bloodstains on the bedding, each about 2 centimeters long, adding to the mystery of George Smith's disappearance. These samples were identified as George's blood. All evidence indicated that George had been traumatized inside the cabin before his mysterious disappearance. The investigators' attention was particularly drawn to a chair on the balcony, which had been moved to allow someone to sit next to the railing. They found marks on the railing, suggesting someone had sat on it. This raised suspicions among many, including the ship's captain, that George might have fallen from the balcony. However, the high railing and the presence of blood both on the boat's awning and inside the cabin also suggested a possible murder. Investigators began reconstructing the sequence of events from that night, trying to determine who George had been spending time with and what might have led to this tragedy. The investigation was just beginning, but it was already clear that they were facing a complex and dark story full of mysteries and unexpected twists and turns. When the Turkish authorities boarded the ship to investigate George Smith's disappearance, they decided to start by questioning the group of young men with whom the newlyweds had spent time the previous night. The situation remained mysterious, and every detail could be crucial in solving the case. Members of the group revealed that George and Jennifer had consumed too much alcohol that night. According to them, George was intoxicated, and they helped him back to his cabin, removed his shoes, and left him alone. They also reported that they could not find Jennifer and assumed she had returned to the cabin later. However, there were discrepancies in Josh Askin's testimony. He claimed that he saw Jennifer leave with a casino employee named Lloyd. Josh believed there was a passionate connection between Jennifer and Lloyd, and they didn't hide their feelings even in George's presence. However, video footage showed that at 3:30 a.m., Jennifer stumbled away, leaving George with her new friends, and Lloyd's keycard data indicated that he returned to his cabin at 3:25 a.m., which was confirmed by his girlfriend, whom he woke upon entering the cabin. These discrepancies raised further questions for investigators and led them to suspect that Josh Askin might have had his own motives for hiding important details. The investigation continued, and each new detail added more mystery to the story. Greg Rosenberg, a 19-year-old, was enjoying the cruise with his family and friends, including his cousin Zach Rosenberg and close friend Rostislav Kaufman. All three, despite their Russian roots, held American passports and lived in New York City. The fun began in the casino, where Jennifer and Greg decided to try their luck at poker. The mutual gambling lasted late into the night, and when the casino closed at 2:30 a.m., the group decided to continue their fun. They headed to the disco, continuing to dance and drink. Lloyd Botha, the casino manager, was also spotted in their company, joining in the fun. However, the events of the night began to diverge according to witness accounts. As the night progressed, the group members gradually dispersed to their cabins. The boys were visibly drunk and rowdy. According to the ship's rules, the staff decided to stop serving them due to their loud and inappropriate behavior. The young men remembered they had a bottle of absinthe purchased during their walk on Mykonos. Despite the rules forbidding passengers from drinking their own alcohol, Josh returned to his cabin to retrieve the absinthe, which had an unusually high alcohol concentration of over 70%, making it one of the strongest drinks available. George decided to help his friend by hiding the bottle behind the waistband of his shorts. After 3 a.m., when the ship was already quiet, an observant janitor noticed the group of young men, including Greg, Zach, Rostislav, Josh, and George, drinking the absinthe. This circumstance did not go unnoticed and became another element in the investigation. It wasn't just the guys who were drunk that evening. Jennifer, who had seemed relatively sober and calm earlier, began to change noticeably. She started staggering and at one point even leaned on the casino manager, Lloyd. Witnesses had different impressions of her behavior. Some thought she was trying to keep her balance, while others saw it as flirting. What happened next between the young spouses remains unclear. According to witnesses, there was a conflict between George and Jennifer. They might have been discussing the evening's events, either jokingly or seriously, adding another layer of complexity to the investigation. At some point, Jennifer hit George. It was unclear whether this happened playfully or in anger. After that, Jennifer left the disco at about 3:30 a.m., visibly intoxicated and stumbling. She left George with his new friends, marking a turning point in the night's events. Staff witnesses' testimonies proved pivotal in uncovering the details of the incident. A janitor who had earlier noticed the young men enjoying absinthe saw Jennifer staggering down the hallway. He supported her, helped her to the elevator, and watched her turn right when she reached her deck. However, her stateroom was on the left, yet she headed in the opposite direction. Jennifer was later found sleeping in the hallway, far from her room. 2 guards and a female duty officer used a wheelchair to get her back to her quarters at 4:52 a.m., but George wasn't there. The balcony door's curtains were drawn tightly and remained stationary despite the breeze. This raised questions about whether George could have gone out to the balcony on his own after being left in bed. Deputy Chief of Police Chit Hyman and his wife, in a neighboring cabin, witnessed the events. At 4 a.m., they were awakened by loud noises from stateroom 9062, where the newlyweds were staying. Chit Hyman called guest services to report the noise and pounded on the wall, resulting in brief silence. However, the loud talking resumed for about 3 minutes, followed by a loud argument on the balcony. The Hyman couple heard someone say "good night" several times, as if trying to chase people out of the cabin. This was followed by sounds of moving furniture and a loud thud like an object falling. Chit Hyman opened the door and saw 3 unidentified men. Several passengers also reported hearing a loud noise that sounded like a body hitting the canopy of the boat, followed by a woman's scream, but there was no conclusive evidence that a woman was in the cabin at the time. According to witnesses, 4 young men entered the cabin, but only 3 were seen leaving. The question arose whether one stayed behind to search for money from the newlyweds, possibly aiming to steal after their generous casino game. The theory of a failed robbery attempt seemed plausible. However, there were alibis for the three boys, Greg, Zach, and Rostislav, who were reportedly in another stateroom just minutes after Chit Hyman saw the three unknown men. The key card records for George's stateroom confirmed that the boys entered at 4:05 a.m., but there was no record of them re-entering. Thus, several theories emerged regarding what may have happened to George Smith. The theory of a possible robbery is a leading one. George and Jennifer seemed more or less sober when they left the casino at 2:30 a.m., but by 3:30 a.m., they were unable to return to their cabin on their own, suggesting possible exposure to illegal substances. Witnesses mentioned that George and Jennifer spoke openly about having large sums of money, possibly from wedding gifts or casino winnings, estimated in the tens of thousands of dollars. George wore an expensive Breitling watch, and Jennifer had an expensive engagement ring, indicating their wealth. Their quarters may have been searched for money, and the blood on the sheets could have resulted from an attempt to remove George's valuable watch. The second theory relates to the effects of alcohol and possible hallucinogens. The captain, learning of the passengers' drunkenness and the footprints on the balcony, concluded that there might have been an unintentional accident, with George falling overboard during a scuffle. Experts in toxicology emphasize that the concentration of the active substance in absinthe, particularly throne, is regulated by European Union laws, making it unlikely to cause hallucinations. However, the absinthe consumed by the group had a high alcohol concentration of over 70%, making it one of the strongest drinks available, possibly contributing to impaired judgment and accidental behavior. In conclusion, the investigation into George Smith's disappearance remains complex and shrouded in mystery, with multiple theories and conflicting testimonies adding to the enigma. Illegally made absinthe with a much higher concentration can be found on the black market, which in theory can cause hallucinations. However, this seems unlikely in this case, as the absinthe the Smith couple purchased was bought officially in Europe and could not have caused such effects. According to experts, to achieve hallucinogenic effects using official absinthe would require consuming a huge quantity, so large that it would be intolerable for the body and would most likely lead to fatal alcohol intoxication. Thus, the version about the influence of alcohol and hallucinogens in this case seems unlikely and lacks convincing evidence. Interviewing suspected company members in George Smith's disappearance was an important part of the investigation. FBI agents conducted polygraph interviews with several key individuals, including Jennifer and casino manager Lloyd Botha. Both passed the polygraph successfully. However, Josh Askin failed the polygraph interview, indicating he might have had secrets regarding George's disappearance. It is also possible that special interrogation tactics affected the result. A videotape of three guys, including Russians, joking about what had happened proved to be important evidence. One unidentified guy on the tape said, "We gave him a lesson in paragliding without a parachute," hinting at some incident involving George. In 2009, Greg, Zach, Rostislav, and Josh Askin were interviewed by FBI agents as witnesses in the investigation into George Smith's mysterious death. Zach Rosenberg and Josh Askin refused to give direct answers and invoked the Fifth Amendment, which allows them not to testify against themselves. Their ambiguous testimonies suggested they were unwilling or unable to provide a full account of what happened. Greg Rosenberg, who was among the young men entertaining that night, claimed they ordered food to their cabin, serving as an alibi for the Russian boys. However, ship records do not support this claim, and the delivery service had been blocked for their cabin the previous day. Greg couldn't say who placed the orders. Witnesses gave different accounts of George and Jennifer's relationship. Greg emphasized that everyone was highly intoxicated, making it hard to determine the nature of their relationship. Josh Askin said Greg left the cabin after ordering food, which Greg denied. These contradictions complicated the investigation, requiring further verification. Greg stated he had no information about Jennifer or Lloyd Botha's involvement in George's disappearance, but insisted the event was not accidental. He claimed something crazy happened that night, which would eventually be revealed. In December 2019, Greg Rosenberg was murdered, and his death remains unsolved. Police are investigating a possible link between his murder and George Smith's death. George Smith's mysterious disappearance cast a shadow over his family. The situation became increasingly complicated, and the family's behavior attracted public and law enforcement attention. The Smith family pressed authorities for the truth and justice. The case was transferred from the FBI's Connecticut office to the New York office. Their persistence and media attention yielded little result. The family offered a $100,000 reward for information and called for a boycott of the cruise company, which they believed was covering up the incident to protect profits. The relationship between George's parents and Jennifer deteriorated after the incident. Publicly, Jennifer seemed too collected, and her reticence raised suspicion. She claimed to follow FBI instructions, but the Smith family lost faith in her when she accepted a $1 million settlement offer from the cruise company, which they saw as a betrayal. They felt Jennifer was too quick to accept the offer and was hiding something. Jennifer claimed she remembered almost nothing from that night after 2:30 a.m. and was unaware the liner staff had found her in the corridor and returned her to her cabin. The Turkish investigation did not satisfy the Smith family, and skeptical of the official findings, they decided to seek justice independently. They enlisted independent forensic scientist Henry Lee, who conducted studies in the cabin and on the balcony, work not included in the official investigation. These investigations revealed key information about what had happened and could confirm one of the two main versions of events: murder or accident. According to Henry Lee, the height of the balcony makes a fall from it questionable. It could have been the result of a third party pushing George, or in some insane state, he might have climbed up on the chair himself and fallen. Nevertheless, the latter version raised many questions and doubts. The expert intended to conduct an experiment to simulate a fall from the balcony, but the company owning the liner refused this request. George's relatives claimed that this decision was made to hinder their attempts to establish the truth. Henry Lee also conducted investigations in the cabin, on the balcony, and on the boat, but the results of these investigations remained unavailable to the public. Meanwhile, the FBI stepped in and began their own investigation, though many of their findings and discoveries also remained secret. The FBI focused on the 4 young men who spent the night with George, Josh Askin, and the 3 Russians, Greg, Zach Rosenberg, and Rostislav Kaufman.